wasn't that great, so I've just I've left it. So today I'm going to talk about my nan, which is not actually my nan, but she's my great nan. She's my mum's mum, right? I call her my nan because my mum's mum didn't get along with my mum. And from my understanding, my nan, Nanny Kath, raised my mum instead of, well, for the most part, raised her. So she called her mum, and in turn, me and my siblings call my great nan our nan. When I was born, my nan would have probably been around about 80. So I didn't get to see a lot of her life. I got to see a fraction. But the great thing is my nan would tell me stories all the time, and she would repeat them 100 times, and I loved it. Every time she would tell me a story, I'd sit down and I'd listen, and if she told me the same story one after the other, I'd sit there and I'd listen, because not only did I feel like it make her happy, but I also feel like I learned a lot from them. She told me a good few stories, and it's funny because I only thought about this a few days ago, but my nan was the same age as the Queen, and if I'm not mistaken, most of the stories she told me were a lot during, before and after the World War II. And I didn't even really realise this as a kid. I didn't really, understand when the war started, how my nan was, stuff like that. And now I look back on it, I go, wow, like there was so many memories she remembered from around that time period that was so amazing, My favourite story of my nan, she would tell me this story how she was running late to work, and she worked in the barracks. And she's running into work, slams open the door, and she needs to sign in, right? So the sign-in board's here, the door is here, so she's opened it up and gone to sign in. She's writing her name down, and she's held the door open basically because people are coming in and out. And she's written her name, and then she's opened the door back up. She's pushed the door closed, and there was a person just standing there behind the door, right? Because he's trapped in this door, right? And my nan's like, sorry, I'm so sorry, like I didn't even know you were there. Like he was standing there for maybe about a minute. He's like, oh, it's all right. Like I thought I'd let you sign in. And that went on to be her husband and my great grandfather. Unluckily, I never got to meet him, but she would always tell me that story. She told me that story a lot, and I could never tell it as good as her. Obviously, she lived it, but she would always tell me that when Frank saw her, that he knew he was going to marry her there. Like at that moment, like he was just sitting there, like giggling to himself, and he just thought, I'm going to marry this woman. So yeah, one of my favourite memories. It really, that one really makes me happy. There's loads of little stories that I find so funny, Me and my nan used to watch House on the Prairie, and basically there's when it cuts to another scene, it's like a kind of picture of this house on the prairie. And my nan one time, we're sitting watching, and the cutscene comes up, and she's like, I sat there, and I was like, huh, really, Nan? That's cool. She's like, yeah. I went there once, and I sat there so that I could tell everyone that I sat there. I'm like, huh, yeah, better reason than any to sit anywhere. That makes complete sense. My nan was filled with these random, like, in the moment was like, oh, she's probably lost a screw, but it's great. She probably never had one. I remember the first time my nan told me off, and the very last time she ever told me off, because I never dared do anything after it. I might have been about 3, maybe 4 years old, and my nan I think she was making something, like a sandwich or some cereal, something like this, and I was trying to reach up on the counter to get it. Obviously, I'm a kid, so I can't quite reach. My nan had these hands that were just so like, I don't even know, they're like venom, right? And she whipped the back of my hand with her hand, just like that, right? And it hurt so much, like, honestly, it was like stinging for hours, like, it was just there, like, it's like, uh, yeah, and she's like, don't do that. Yeah, and again, after that, I never did anything, anything bad ever again. My nan done a lot for me, and my mum and my siblings. Every time she would come round to visit us, she would always get us sweets. There's 5 of us, right? And she would always get us individual sweets that she knew that we liked. And without fail, every time, without fail. And she always thought that we were so happy to get a treat, but honestly, we were just happy to see her. Like, we loved so much seeing Nan. She was a laugh, like, over the old lady, over the years, would be in and out of hospital sometimes, depending on what's going on, and she was always just making everyone laugh with the funniest humor ever. Like, honestly, I've never come across someone funnier than my nan. The risky humor would always pay off. Like, she would say some crazy things, and everyone in the ward or whatnot, the doctor, always everyone just laughing. And she did it in such a way, it was just so fluent. Just so good at it. My nan did a lot to raise me, and I think out of everyone, I took more mannerisms from her than anyone else. And I'm proud of that. I'm proud that I'm a lot like my nan. Some of my happiest memories of my nan is, like, in the mornings, she stayed with us for some time, and in the mornings I'd come down and I'd make her a breakfast or a tea or whatnot, and I'd go across and I'd get her her papers and make sure she's taking her medicine and stuff like that. And after schools, I'd come in and I'd check and make sure that she's got everything she needs, and I'll sit with her for an hour or two. But I think that time, at that point in time, it made me so happy to be able to give something back to my nan. Just sitting there talking to her, making sure that she's got everything she needs, and it was the first time in my life that I could give back to her. And honestly, I'm so glad I did. There was points in time where I could have done anything else, and I didn't. I sat on my nan for hours and hours and hours and hours and hours, and I'm so glad I did. I'm so glad I did. My nan was a night owl just like me. And I remember one time she was staying with us, and I woke up, it was probably 2 in the morning, and I just started secondary school, and I peeked my head out, and she's like, what are you doing up? And I'm like, she's right down the hall from me, and I've gone on a run now, I've sat in there with Nan, and my nan's just talking and about whatnot. And my mum has heard us talk, and she shouted up, "Cameron, get into bed!" And I've ran into bed. I ran, and my mum's come up, and she's like, "What was that, Cameron? Bear in mind, there was all these other. I had 5 siblings, right? So it could have been any one of us, but my mum knew it was probably me." And my nan goes, "No, don't know who it was." And it's just things like that that just made me so happy. Like, I love my nan a lot. You know, sitting here talking about my nan, it really, like, you know, I'm like flicking through all these memories of her talking about her memories, and she was just so good at it. Like, I don't even know how she could talk like speak a story into existence, and it sort of like painted a whole world for me, and it was like I was there, and she just did it so well. So my nan passed away when she was 94, and I remember the first time I was with my nan, and I was talking, back and forth like we normally do, and she says, "Cam, I'm ready to die," right? And at first it kind of hit me. Well, it's a heavy statement, but it made me at peace, because when she did pass, it was like she was ready. She lived a very good life. She lived a very good life, and she was happy. She was happy with what she had done and how she had lived, and she probably didn't make all the right choices. She probably didn't tell me all the bad choices she made, but for the most part, she definitely lived a very good life, and she was ready. And I think so. My dad passed when I was 15, and only a few years later is when my nan passed. Losing my dad was hard because he was so young, and unfortunately I didn't get to see him as much as I should have. But whereas my nan, I spent most of my teen years with her. If I'll be honest, more than anyone else. So her saying that, it kind of, when she did pass, was upsetting, but it was only upsetting for me, in the sense that I was like, it was a selfish upset. It was that I wanted her back, but I knew she was happy to just to pass on, that she had done what she needed to do, and that made me. It was a lot easier to accept, and obviously I still miss her till this day. Like, I miss my nan so much, but it's a lot easier to accept. My nan told me a few stories of Frank. This is my great grandfather. I never met him, but she would always relay a story. I think they're in the pub, and they've had an argument over something. My nan's gone, "Screw it, I'm going home." And she goes home, and he follows her home, of course. And they resolve it, right? And I don't know why, but she'd always tell me this one. It was a lot longer than that, obviously, but she'd always tell me this one, because after, and without a doubt, she'd always say this. She said, "Cam, he would never let me sleep on an argument. He'd never let me leave on an argument. He'd never let me go to work on an argument. He'd always make sure that he told me he loved me, and that everything was squared away before we left each other. If that's sleeping, going to work, whatever it is. And she would always say that. And it's one of the best pieces of advices I've ever had. Don't ever leave someone on an argument. I know it's hard. But someone you love, you don't know when you leave them if that's the last time you're going to see them. So make sure when you leave someone, whether that's to go work, or to go sleep, or whatever it is, make sure that you are okay with them and that you tell them you love them.